Want to pick your compliance?
It helped to. It's kind of top and performance not happening.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Okay. I now call North Plains City Council meeting to order, March 2nd at 7 p.m. You would please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. One thing before we approve that, or we move on to consent agenda. I did receive news recently of the passing of former city councilor Michelle McCall Wallace. We hope to be able to communicate more soon with the public when we learn more, but for now we just ask that you all honor her memory and her service to our city. She was a member of the council and somebody who was respected, so just please, if you would give her family your thoughts and prayers. Okay, at this time we will entertain a motion on the approval of the consent agenda and the council minutes from the 2nd and the 17th. Yeah, whatever it is. See, this is why you're here too. Lori, can you please call roll? I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Mayor Dumbrell,
Present.
Counselor DeForge. Counselor Hagedorn. Present. Counselor Pittman.
Present.
Counselor Redding.
Present.
And Counselor Better.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
I didn't take it personally.
Okay, so now I entertain a motion for the approval of the February 2nd and February 17th minutes and the consent agenda.
Mayor Dunbar, can I make a small minute?
Certainly.
Movement or revision? Then, and I apologize as the paragraph, I just want to get the TGM notes kind of dialed in because I think they'll be referenced later. So under unfinished business, I prefer if it would say Councilor DeForge to recap previously identified evaluation categories for community impact and fiscal impact, including infrastructure, affordability, and long-term fiscal sustainability. Proposed adding zoning alignment as an additional consideration, discussed sequencing zoning code updates prior to potential HEB expansion to reduce unintended land use outcomes. Council expressed general agreement that zoning modernization is an important consideration of future growth plans. Council also discussed the importance of the PAC representative gathering and relaying information consistent with council direction without committing the council to specific outcome, and affirm that final land use decisions remain with the council.
Which minute packet was this?
This is under unfinished business.
For 2-2 or 2-7?
17.
Right.
Okay, so if you can send that to Lori for updates.
Yep, I sent it earlier this month.
Okay. So does anybody object to that change? Okay, so you'll. So I need to rebut.
But
We need to wait on that one then, right?
No.
Till it's-
the second,
Did you have some other sections?
no, I was just saying, now the motion.
Oh, there's no motion. Your motion was to revise it. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood you. Is there a second to approve as amended?
Counselor Redding, I will approve as amended. Second.
Okay, Counselor Forge moves, Counselor Redding seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome Russ Sheldon and to the public comment. And we're council, we're not going to time this one. This is something special, a special situation. He requested extra time, so we're just going to let him speak.
Turn down yet.
think about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Russ Sheldon, I'm a resident in the city of North Plains. And I'm here to essentially honor the service of Herb Hurst and his contributions to the city and our country tonight by reading his obituary. Herbert Hurst was born in Albany, New York, to Helen Howe and Harry Hurst. He spent his formative years in Albany, Mount Vernon, and Schenectady, New York, and graduated from Freiburg Academy in Maine. In 1956, he joined the U.S. Army Reserve and served as a private at Fort Drum, New York. He attended Officer Candidate School in 1960, graduating as a second lieutenant, and was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington in 1964. In 1965, Herb began helicopter pilot training at Fort Walters, Texas, graduating in 1966. He was then deployed to Vietnam for a year as a helicopter gunship pilot in Battery A, 2nd Battalion, 20th Artillery, 1st Cavalry Division. During his service in Vietnam, he earned the Distinguished Flying Cross, Bronze Star, and the Air Medal with 15 oak leaf clusters. After returning to Texas from Vietnam in 1967, Herb served as a helicopter instructor and left active duty in 1969. After his military service, Herb moved to Oregon and worked for the State of Oregon Emergency Services Division and later the Department of Human Resources. In 1979, he relocated to Portland to join the State Health Division. Throughout his tenure, he managed purchasing and services, served as acting assistant manager at the Oregon Public Health Laboratory, manager for the Oregon Medical Examiner's Office, administered the Office of Health Status Monitoring, and was assistant administrator for administrative services. In 1995, he became business administrator for the Department of the Oregon State Police and retired in 1998, completing 21 years of service to the state of Oregon. Herb continued his military career in the U.S. Army Reserve, serving in the 104th Division in Vancouver, Washington, and later in 1972 with the 364th Civil Affairs Brigade in Portland. He retired as a U.S. Army colonel in 1991. Herb married Cindy Duras in 1979, and together they moved to North Plains in 1980. Despite a busy work life, Herb dedicated time to volunteering in his community. He served 2 years on the North Plains Planning Commission and was a member of the City Council from 1983 to 2008, except for 4 years when his wife was mayor. He also enjoyed announcing the North Plains Elephant Garlic Festival parade for many years. Following his retirement from the state of Oregon, Herb was appointed by the governor to the Environmental Health Registration Board, the Sanitarians Registration Board, and the Board of Cosmetology. He continued to volunteer for the Washington County Fair Board and the Washington County Planning Commission. Herb participated in the Department of Defense Employer Support of Guard and Reserve and spent 12 years working in security and logistics for the Hillsborough International Air Show. He became a ham radio operator and served on the board for Oregon Valley Amateur Radio Club for many years. Herb was a member of the Forest Grove American Legion Post 2, Martin J. Ryan VFW Post 2666 in Hillsborough, the Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association, Military Officers Association of America, Distinguished Flying Cross Association, Aerial Rocket Artillery Association, and Reserve Officers Association. He cherished his time in the military and enjoyed participating in Living History Day events in the Portland area where he engaged with high school students. Herb is survived by his wife, Cindy, his daughter, Kelly Hunter, his brother, Ronald of Clay, New York, and 3 sisters and brothers-in-law, Carol and Steve Nolan of Hillsborough, Colleen and Steve Palmer of St. Helens, Corinne and Blake Landon of Hillsborough, sister-in-law Kathy Robb of Tampa, Florida, and former brother-in-law Burdette Robb of Harrison, Michigan. Herb and Cindy also share over 38 nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and nephews, and great-great-nieces and nephews. He was preceded in death by his parents, his brother Donald, and his infant son Joshua. And tonight I just want to recognize Herb for his service, 23 years of service to the city, 21 of those on the council, and his devoted and selfless consecration to the service of our country in the armed forces of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate that. And while I did not personally know Herb, it's always amazing to hear people's military backgrounds and other backgrounds, but military to me is personal.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We laid him to rest today. Beautiful military tribute out at the Old Scotch Church after the services. And it was pretty fitting for a guy who really put it out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Beautiful. Okay, not sure how to follow that one up. So next item on the agenda will be resolutions. So resolution 2334, appointing Anna Warrington to city council for the remainder of a term ending in December 31st, 2026. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Councilor Weber, for the approval of resolution number 2334.
Okay, Council Weber moves for approval of 2334. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Hagelhorn seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And Councilor Harrington, if you'd like to come up, we'll swear you in. Well, not we, the royal we. The only person that's really in charge here.
Nice. It turned off, so I'm sure it's pointing up here in front of the mayor, please. Very long. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Anna Warrington,
Swear that I will faithfully support the Constitution and laws
swear that I will faithfully support the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America and of the state of Oregon,
of the United States of America and the state of Oregon,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of North Plains,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of North Plains.
and I will perform the duties of city councilor for the city of North Plains
And I will perform the duties of city councilor for the city of North Plains
to the best of my ability, so long as I may continue in that capacity, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so long as I may continue in that capacity, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Councilor Warrington, you have words of wisdom for the council, or like to say before we move on?
I have no words of wisdom right now, but I do want to express my gratitude. I'm looking forward to working with all of you over the next few months. So thank you, and thank you for your patience that I'm sure you're going to extend to me. Soon. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Welcome. Okay, next item is resolution 2296, North Plains Parks and Rec Board bylaws. I'll now entertain a motion. Discussion. Council?
Counselor Redding, did we have the city attorney look over the bylaws at all?
I did not, but I don't know if anyone in my office did. I
Have
did.
we done that in the past? If we have.
Not to my recollection, no, we've never had any with the bylaws.
Other comments or resolutions?
Counselor Hagedorn here.
I do have one comment or, the bylaws does, cover aspects that would also be touched upon within the umbrella policy. Is that an issue with any or?
Counselor Hagedorn of policy.
Or the umbrella policy, the committee,
I think you mean the subcommittee.
subcommittee, sorry.
I guess broadly speaking, I don't know because I don't know what I
Yeah,
mean, I've never seen, like, we're gonna have a work session, we'll talk about. The plan is to have a work session to go
Yes.
to kind of get an update on all that, I mean, potentially. But until city council adopts new ordinance that changes the code for the Parks Board. These are just their bylaws until any changes are done by you all. So I don't know the answer because we haven't had that work session yet.
okay,
I think to add to that, the bylaws, in the future can be changed, but they do need to have bylaws, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of the odd thing about all this is, they're breaking the law by not having bylaws. It's in the code.
goodness.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's a way to put it, but yeah,
They're not in
have to have
compliance.
bylaws. Well, they need laws to conduct themselves.
Right.
The thing to remember about the bylaws is that 80 to 90% of that document is actually the code itself
Okay,
about the Parks Board and what it does and who it is and how they get there. And really the only original information in the bylaws that they came up with, based on what the EDC's bylaws are, have to do with things like how naughty do you have to be before you get a recommendation to council to be booted. They're allowed to do subcommittees and there's rules for that, no more than 3, a non-court group. Things like that, just sort of how they conduct themselves, that the code doesn't tell them how to do it.
And it's pretty typical for most boards that I've been on that adopt the bylaws, and I've written a lot. So with that, any other discussion or motions?
Counselor Redding here. I don't want to belabor the process, and I fully support accountability for attendance and conduct. However, the phrase allowing removal if a member acts in a manner, quote, deemed contrary to board goals is subjective and does not define a clear threshold of process that could unintentionally blur the line between misconduct and policy disagreement.
Yeah, I believe if I read that, hold on. I read that, what page is that on the bylaws? It's,
47?
Oh.
46.
yeah, sorry. 47. Yeah, so,
Can I just,
conduct in meeting, section 4. Article 6, section 4, that we're talking about.
I don't have it in front of me. I can, let me see.
No, that's, vacancies.
Yeah, Article 4.
It's basically what it says, is they
Section.
can recommend the council for removal, it doesn't give them the authority to remove, which is fine, because they can. Like, just like any subordinate board, they can recommend, and the council has to make a decision, I mean. I could recommend a lot of stuff to the governor, I don't think she's gonna pay attention. I mean, that's just my 2 cents, I mean, I'm being a little bit funny, but at the same time. I think they can recommend, it's up to us to make the decision, that's what the council's function would be. Does that answer your question, like you're concerned? Or is it still a concern?
I mean, it sounds like you wanted clear and objective language, and so that's what I've been focusing on. And it's just, I feel like tightening the language to include objective standards, a defined attendance threshold, written notice, and an opportunity to respond while keeping final removal authority with council. It strengthens accountability and protects the city from claims of arbitrary or politically motivated removal.
Because we're going to do an overlay or an overarching policy, would it be okay if that was part of the overarching policy and is amended in the future so they can have bylaws? So does anybody want to make a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2296 to approve bylaws for North Plains Parks Board with the provisions outlined by Councilor Lim.
What exactly are the provisions?
That'd be more specific than that.
I
Good.
have them written down.
But that needs to come. Hold on, you gotta withdraw the motion.
I
Or you
withdraw
have to say-
the motion.
Or you have to make it very specific. So you either need to approve it or send it back, because what I'm referring to is when the subcommittee presents in the work session, we will send it to all the boards to say, make sure that your bylaws are aligned to this, and then that will be the time where they'll need to change it. That was my suggestion, but I mean, it's up to you all. I'm just telling you that's the process. So we either need to approve it or send it back to Parks Board. But, I'll stop it. So, thoughts? Motions?
I move to adopt resolution 2296 to approve bylaws for the North Plains Parks Board.
All right, I have a motion for Councilor Hagedorn to approve 2296. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilor, 4 seconds. All in favor of approving resolution 2296, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so just on that note, I will suggest to the subcommittee, when we do the work session, let's make sure that comes up, that we ensure everything is clear and objective, so that we can, if there's anything that we would like different, that it's noted. But now we have bylaws. We're out of the hot water. Next is an IGA intergovernmental agreement, sorry, our acronyms. Resolution 2336, broadband user group, intergovernmental agreement, and I am going to give this to Bill. You have the staff report? Okay, Bill has the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. So resolution 2336, basically, if approved by council, we join the other nearly 18 jurisdictions in Washington County that have for a while now coordinated basically on internet connection. As you can imagine, if the city were to call up Comcast and say, we need internet service, they would say, great. But then we say, but we need one secure line, we need wireless, we need assurances that police and the county also needs a separate line that we need to do, like complications on and on. That make being a public agency getting internet service kind of special. So Bug, which has been around for a while, is basically just most of the cities and many of the emergency service operators that coordinate on negotiating internet service needs from whoever the primary vendor is, and it's been Comcast successfully by bid for a little while. But either way, over the years, that's also meant the addition to the system of a GIS platform that also kind of enables infrastructure and emergency services information between agencies. So this IGA is basically a cleaned up version of the one that was originally done years ago. The group is still called Broadband Users Group, but broadband is an antiquated term, and there were some antiquated terms and things in the old agreement that this just brushes up. As the staff report says, the city is charged about $4,600 a year for this service as part of Bug. And most of that, I believe all of it actually, is reimbursed to us by MAC annually. So at the end of the day, we pay. So council, we have to approve those expenditures, but they get reimbursed to us. So, but it's still technically upfront an expenditure. So why we're also here. So that's the nature of the resolution, and if you approve it, then it authorizes me to sign that IGA and continue service, moving forward.
And just to clarify, this is effectively a collective bargaining with Comcast, which is in our favor because Comcast otherwise would run amok. Opinion. So any questions, comments, thoughts, motions?
I make a motion that we approve.
Hello,
There is a question.
Councilor Warren,
I
Councilor
have a
Warren.
question, thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Warrington, I don't know much about the broadband user group or BUG as it's known for. I did a little bit of research on it, and if you Google does broadband user group impact data centers, and it comes up, yes. It impacts it, by driving demand, shaping regulations and infrastructure development. So, of course, our city is, not database pro, you know, it's not a good thing for most of the people who live here. If you look at our voting record, I'm not opposed to this BUG, resolution 2336. However, I would like to make a, notion that we add a clause into the agreement or this proposal, that says, comma, or create a pathway for any data center activity in North Plains, just to make it clear for our people who live here that this isn't about data centers at all. I just wanted to make that clear for people here, that this is in no way, shape, or form associated with that. So we're all on the same page.
Okay, I think modifying an IGA is, it would require a significant amount of process, correct?
The IGA as it's presented in the packet is pre-agreed, the language is kind of put together and reviewed by all the different representative attorneys. So it would be us petitioning all the other agencies to add that provision specific to North Plains. So I guess what I would say is, you all should deliberate whether or not you want us to do that, but that's what that would mean.
So this motion, that this resolution isn't just for North Plains, all of the cities, the 18 cities sign the exact same resolution?
That's correct.
Correct. But yeah, it's just an agreement between all the government entities to negotiate for broadband pricing. For this specific thing. Any other comments or motions?
I move to adopt resolution 2336 to approve the broadband users group intergovernmental agreement. Please.
Okay, moved by Councilor Hagedorn to approve resolution 2336. Do I have a second?
Counselor Weber, I would second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Hagedorn, seconded by Councilor Weber. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And I understand your concerns, Counselor. I just want to make sure that we don't end up in a bad situation with broadband, because that also feeds our emergency operations center.
Understood.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Emily, who gets part two.
So I am going to give a training on some topics, and those of you who were here a year ago, Ashley Driscoll from my office gave a very similar training. There are some difference. I've added some things, but generally it's very heavily point those out. So okay, let's see, yeah. Okay, so my goals in giving this presentation are not to make you an expert. My goal is to try to give you the tools to recognize issues as you proceed in your role on the council. And then, once you recognize those issues, come to me or staff for assistance. The topics for tonight are council's authority, public meetings, public records, decision-making, and government ethics laws. And I have a little asterisk on public meetings because the OGEC now requires that you take a approximately 2-hour public meetings training once per term. And so I am going to just do that very briefly because you guys are either have already or will very soon take a 2-hour training, so I'm not gonna focus on that one too much.
Is
Yeah.
the DEH training on that Emily sent us? Oh, sorry,
Ashley.
sorry, sent us last time. Is that still part of it? Is
So,
there a new one?
no, so my understanding was it was like certified, approved by OGEC through like the summer, but I don't know for sure. So I'll find that out and let you know, because we do have our own training posted that OGEC approved for that.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we're all in compliance.
You are, if you watched it, it's good.
Okay, good.
You're done for your term.
Thank you.
Yeah. So first, we'll talk briefly about your form of government. So your charter creates a council manager form of government. That means that all powers are reserved to council as a body unless they're delegated to someone else. Council sets the general policies for the city. The mayor serves as the political head of the city, and the city manager is responsible for the administrative or day-to-day affairs of the city. This means that individual councilors and the mayor have no power individually, right? Council conducts its business as a body. So individual councilors and the mayor have no independent authority to act for the city. It's also a division of authority between the council and the city manager, this council manager form of government. So council acts through ordinances for legislative decisions, resolutions for administrative decisions, and orders for quasi judicial decisions. And I'm gonna like table that, and we'll talk about the types of decisions a little later. This slide was left over from Ashley's. I'm not gonna read, I don't like reading big blocks of text in slides. But it lays out, it shows that the charter says what the council does, what the mayor does, and what the council does. Okay. Generally, the express approval of a majority of a quorum is necessary for a council decision. And your charter, section 13, sets the quorum at a majority of council members. That is 4. But there are certain decisions in your charter that require approval by a majority of the council, not just a majority of the quorum. So most decisions require 3 votes, but certain decisions like adoption of ordinances, appointment and removal of city manager require a majority of the council or 4. Every member who is present when a question is addressed must vote for or against the question unless the council excuses them, or for just legal cause without being excused by the council. And an example of an excuse is a conflict of interest, which I'm gonna go over a little bit. Yeah.
Real quick clarification. How does abstentions work into that then? If it's not for, conflict? If somebody abstains?
Somebody abstains. So the way I read this is that every member, you can only abstain for, if council excuses you or for just legal cause. That's
Okay.
the way I read that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Okay. Council generally uses Robert's Rules of Order to conduct its business, but I always say that my advice is not to get hung up in parliamentary procedure, and what's most important is it being clear to the people in the room and on the record
what council is doing and who supports what council is doing. So council uses Robert's rules, but if there's a question, just make sure it's clear what's going on. Either the mayor or the council president in the mayor's absence serve as the presiding officer. If both are absent, then council elects a temporary presiding officer. Unless a member of the council is excused from voting, their silence is recorded as an affirmative vote. So the charter requires council to adopt council rules to govern its meetings. Those were recently amended. I encourage you to revisit them every so often just to remind yourself what they say. I'm not gonna read it, but they have requirements about revising ordinances. They have requirements on focusing on city issues and avoiding becoming involved in extraterritorial issues, and also on who can speak and when. So I have a portion of presentation on political activities, but I didn't include it here. I'm happy to come back as the political season heats up, or just send it in a memo. But the main advice is don't solicit political support from staff. It's pretty straightforward for elected officials. It's a little more complicated for staff, but for elected officials, don't ask staff for political support or ask them to, support, do administrative duties in support of a political cause, etc. And generally speaking, you should limit your requests for staff support. Routine secretarial support is provided. Mail is opened by city staff unless other arrangements are made. And with respect to correspondence, you should check with city staff before taking action to see if an official response has already been sent. And copies of correspondence should be provided to the city recorder. Generally, items for the council agenda should be submitted in time to allow sufficient research by staff and also recommendations from subcommittees or advisory committees. Although that is generally the case, the council may add items not on the agenda by a majority vote and then action is taken on the item. So that's all council business. So what is not council business is the duties that are delegated to the city manager in the charter. For example, and this list is not exhaustive, you'll see the numbers are out of order and missing some. The city manager must administer and enforce all city ordinances, resolutions, franchises, leases, contracts, permits, and other city decisions. Must appoint, supervise, and remove city employees, must organize city departments and administrative structure, prepare and administer the annual city budget, administer city utilities and property, promote cooperation among council staff and citizens in developing city policies and building a sense of community, and delegate duties but remain responsible for acts of subordinates. And of course, the council supervises the city manager, but council does not have authority to direct individual action related to these subjects. That's basically what I was saying earlier. There is a charter provision about do not attempt to influence city staff on the making of appointments, awarding of contracts, selection of consultants, processing of developing applications, or granting of city licenses and permits. That's Charter Section 34I. And it also says that violation of this prohibition is grounds for removal from office by a majority of the council after a public hearing. There has been some recent litigation, and I have some free speech concerns with this charter section as drafted, and I'll raise it at the charter review process.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Yep. But the general concept is legal and is inherent in the council manager form of government. So to the extent that matters require council involvement, staff will bring them to council as a body for discussion and action at a council meeting. So I am going to very briefly expand on the contracting aspect of council and staff's role. So the code says that council is the local contract review board. Resolution 1250 from 2005 establishes the city's public contracting rules, and my office is already starting to engage in the process of updating those, and we'll be bringing in something to council soon. The rules govern the council rule, or the public contracting rules govern the processes for awarding personal service contracts and goods and services contracts, whereas state law covers professional services contracts. The rules lay out formal selection procedures, informal selection procedures, and then also allow single source in certain circumstances. And the city manager's contracting authority is $50,000. And one of the things that the update will do is, since you adopted your public contracting rules, the limits have, the state legislature sets the limits for the selection procedures, and they've been increased. So you can sort of be more nimble in awarding contracts. So that's one of the reasons that I think it's important to update your rules to sort of be able to take advantage of that. The like $25,000 meant something different in 2005 than it does now. So having said all that, contract administration is within the purview of the city manager. And so neither council as a body nor an individual councilor should interfere with contract administration. And if those matters require council involvement, they'll be brought to the council as a body. I also want to note before I move on from public contracting, that our office has done webinars, not just the OGEC public meetings training, but we've done other webinars as well. And there's a public contracting 101 webinar on our YouTube page, which if you're interested in learning more about public contracting, that is a good resource. And I'll try to remember to point out the other topics we've done. Okay, so in all statements relating to public issues or policies, a counselor should take care to state whether your comments are personal opinions or representations of official city positions. I think that's in your council rules also. Yeah. And then counselors must keep all materials provided to them on matters of confidentiality in complete confidence, and no mention of such matters should be made to anyone other than fellow city councilors, the necessary city staff, or the city attorney as needed. And confidential matters does include information discussed in an executive session. In general, and I think this is also in your council rules, members of the council should not respond to comments made during public comment agenda time, except to ask clarifying questions. Any public requests for city council action will be referred to staff for review before being placed on a future agenda. Okay, here's my very brief public meetings law. It's only one slide. Oh, no, it's 2 slides, sorry. So as I mentioned, state law requires that you take the OGEC approved public meetings law training once during your term in office. So if you've already taken it in your term, you don't have to, but if you have not, you can coordinate with staff. We do have this webinar that's approved for the training on our website. I can't remember when it expires, so I will follow up on that by email. If it's still good, then that's a great way to do it easily from your own computer. But because you either already have taken a 2-hour training or will be soon, I'm gonna try and keep this section brief and just hit basically on 3 topics: serial communications, executive sessions, and meeting minutes. So Oregon's public meetings law requires that council's deliberations and decisions must be done in public after notice with meeting minutes, and then all the other things that the public meetings law requires. This means that you can't convene or hold a meeting without being in public and giving the required notice and taking meeting minutes. And the reason I say this is because you can accidentally convene a meeting, and that's basically what a serial communication is. So I want to warn you to beware of serial communications. And what that means is a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries such as staff, to discuss, deliberate, or take action between a quorum of a governing body. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but just I'm gonna warn you about a couple different scenarios where it could come up, such as an email. And my general advice is to avoid emailing each other about subjects that will come before you for a vote. And specifically, I'll tell you to beware of reply all. That's just a tip, especially because serial communication by email is in writing, so it's really easy to prove. So just be careful. I also will warn you about social media, because that's something else that I see. There's like a robust Facebook conversation, and one counselor weighs in, another comments later on, you know, a third, you're really playing with a potential serial communication in that situation when you're all communicating on the same social media post. And then I added social gatherings. Social gatherings are okay, but you just have to be really careful to avoid discussion of official business. And sometimes that's really hard because the way you know each other often is through your time on council. So it's really easy to sort of drift in the conversations about, you know, the meeting or the packet or whatever. So just be careful when you are gathering socially. And I do want to also note that there is a bill. Oh,
There is a bill,
Yeah,
yes.
there is.
There is a bill.
oh.
Every time. Do you mind if I ask about an example? Kind of an example of the situation to get an answer from you so that they don't have to worry or better understand about social meetings. Let's suppose there's a neighborhood meeting and it's meant, and staff are giving a presentation about a topic just to inform the neighborhood or the community. And let's say that that meeting location is the most convenient for a number of city councilors. And on one particular meeting, let's say three city councilors show up and sit with their families at different tables, aren't near each other, aren't talking to each other, or just listening to the presentation because it's a deep dive on something. But there also happens to be a city councilor helping staff talk about things. Is that a problematic situation from a serial meeting standpoint, or is it because counselors in the audience by themselves just listening, it's okay?
So I would say that this is a tough one because whereas a previous Oregon Government Ethics Commission makeup probably wouldn't have found that to be a serial communication, I think currently the Oregon Government Ethics Commission might. And I came and talked to council previously about some of these issues in an executive session. And that's basically where I was going, which is there is a bill in the session right now to kind of address this confusion. And it's moving, all indications are that it'll pass. I don't know if that's true. It's hard to predict, especially because the session is ending so soon. So I don't really know how to answer that question right now. It's not how I understood serial communications to operate, because the communication is going in one direction, right? But again, if it's not a quorum, I would say then it's not a problem. But if it is, then I can't, we're in a tough spot right now.
Oh, hold on, Councilor Running, I think with,
Oh, you put me on the spot.
I'm sorry, we want to come back to you?
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
yes.
go ahead, Councilor.
I was because Counselor Weber, what confuses me in this is if I'm just attending a meeting, gathering information, it's not even an agenda item that's gonna be on the council floor. So I don't really understand why there would be that much fear if a bunch of us just attended a meeting and we're gathering information. It's not a discussion in the future.
Right. I can address it. It's okay.
Yeah.
So we've had this conversation with the county commissioners and the mayors. Our understanding from all of our city attorneys is we're pretty sure that, well, so this is why the bill is before the legislature. But our understanding is it is open for interpretation, and that's why Mayor Rosner championed the bill to get that clarification, because the language was not clear to us, and we all felt that it was causing a lot of problems that were unnecessary. It's causing a lot of churn for attorneys to try to figure out what was gonna happen, and we're also trying to predict what a government commission is going to determine without knowing, basically just based on how they see it. So yes, I think what Emily said earlier is, doesn't seem like from her perspective, but also it seems like it might, we don't know what the ethics commission is gonna say. This is all the mayors are saying the same thing. So yes, we understand what you're saying. We don't know how the ethics commission will. That's just the feedback from all the mayors that I've been getting.
I mean, I'm just saying, Counselor Weber, I mean, to me, there's some element of common sense, I think, that would prevail, like if 4 counselors went to the funeral today, somebody has to leave. I don't think we have to be that worried. Now, obviously, if we're attending something that's discussing what a decision will be on the urban growth boundary, that's a different thing, but that's my only thing, is making people so fearful they count the room every time they go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess the two things that I will say about this is it's a matter of risk tolerance for you to decide for yourself how you feel about being in that situation. But secondly, it is only something that may come before you for a decision. So if it's really nothing that will ever come before council for a decision, then you're safe. But if it doesn't have to be scheduled, it doesn't have to be, there's no time limit on that language. So if it will come before you, or it sometime in the future come before council for a decision, then it could be a problem.
Sounds ready. Got it back.
Get it back. Took my gab. The bill number, should we be watching for it, or will you be able to
All right,
provide
I
an
will
update?
update you.
And that is council running.
Yes, trust me, when the signing die is done, I plan to add that to my council reports, because I've been following a bunch of bills. Anybody else?
Okay, so the second public meetings law topic I want to talk about very briefly is executive sessions, which are public meetings that are closed to the public, and they can only be used to discuss certain matters which are defined in statute. And council cannot make a final decision in an executive session. There's specific procedures to enter into executive sessions, and the media may attend in most situations. So they can be present for most executive sessions. And while they may not report on what they hear in the executive session, they may use information they learn in the executive session to follow other leads. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then lastly, regarding minutes, the public meetings law requires a recording or keeping minutes, and you record meetings. But your council rules also require the keeping of minutes, which is actually very common among cities in Oregon, in part because it's just a lot easier for the public to review, a 4-page minute document than watch a 3-hour video, for example. The council rules say that minutes should contain certain information such as council members and staff present, motions, proposals, resolutions, orders, ordinances, and measures proposed and their disposition, the result of all votes, including who voted yes and no, the substance of the discussion on a matter, and references to all documents discussed. The minutes are not required to be verbatim, and that is especially true for you, since we also keep the audio recording as the official record of the meeting. Okay, I said there's 2 slides, but this is sort of a different topic, which is control of public meetings. I can't remember if it's your charter or your council rules. The presiding officer has inherent authority to keep order and impose reasonable restrictions necessary for the efficient and orderly conduct of a meeting. And council should not eject an individual from a meeting unless that individual has actually disrupted the meeting. And that's a pretty high bar. It means that the person has to prevent council from doing its business. So for instance, holding a sign in protest, that's not an actual disruption, even if it's a really icky, upsetting sign. Someone yelling or singing or playing an instrument, that is an actual disruption because it actually prevents you from hearing each other and being able to vote on an issue. Our advice, my advice, even when there is an actual disruption, first of all, you have to warn them, the person who's doing the disrupting. But second of all, my advice, because this is such a touchy subject, free speech rights are involved. My advice is to recess the meeting rather than ejecting a single person, come back later that night or the next day and reconvene, just to be safe. Okay. We're gonna talk also briefly about public records. So the public record is a writing that contains information about the conduct of the public's business. It doesn't matter what format it's on. Writing includes a photograph, a map, I think a video recording is a writing. It's any type of medium. And it's anywhere the writing is located, which means if it's on your personal phone, if it contains information about the conduct of the public's business, it's still a public record that you must retain. If it's on your home computer, and it contains information about the conduct of the public's business, it's a public record that must be retained. Having said that, you only are required to keep one official copy of each record, and that's the city. The city is only required to keep one official copy of each record for the applicable retention period. So if you have it saved on your home computer, but you also have it in the agenda packet's the official record. So you don't have to worry about that. And this duty, it's obvious because of how I'm describing it, it extends to council members, not just employees. So your notes, your social media posts, your emails to personal accounts, and your documents on home computers might need to be retained if they contain information about the conduct of the public's business. Of course, exemptions may apply. So just because it's a public record doesn't mean that it'll automatically be sent out in response to a public records request. There may be an exemption that affects the information in the record. And also destruction of public records is a crime. It's a misdemeanor. Destruction or tampering with public records. And then I will also just note, I did a webinar on public records. So if you are really dying to learn more about that topic, you can watch it also.
And just one point on that, we do retain all emails, so if you do have something that you think might be a public record, you email it to yourself. Lori told me that that's your cover.
That's a great method. So you, like, my advice is not to text about, you know, public issues, but you can't control what people text you. So if someone texts you something that is related to the conduct of the public's business, you can either move the conversation to your email or just forward the text message to your email. And that's a great method for retaining it. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about decision making, and earlier in the presentation, I talked about quasi-judicial decisions, administrative decisions, and legislative decisions, and there's a reason I did that. So quasi-judicial decisions are made by order, and an example is a land use application. Administrative decisions are made by resolution. Sometimes they can also be made by motion. And one example is rates, setting rates for the city. And then legislative decisions are made by ordinance, and an example is the nuisance code, but you know, any code amendment is a legislative decision. So a quasi-judicial decision typically applies pre-existing criteria to an individual person or piece of land. And determining whether a proceeding is quasi-judicial turns on these three characteristics. So the first is that it's bound to result in a decision. And that's I feel like that's a weird phrase. It's from a case. But what that means is that, for example, you have an application before you, you can only approve or deny it. an ordinance or otherwise, you can table it. You don't have to deal with it. You can vote yes, you can vote no, you can amend and decide later. A quasi judicial decision is approve or deny. It's bound to result in a decision. Okay. The second characteristic of a quasi judicial decision is that you are bound to apply pre-existing criteria to concrete facts. So you have the criteria, does this meet, do these facts meet the criteria, and how are you gonna decide based on that? And then lastly, it's directed at a closely circumscribed factual situation or a relatively small number of persons. Again, it applies generally to an individual person or piece of land or a small group. And there is a reason that I'm doing that, because a quasi judicial decision must comply with the process. And that includes providing the person an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to present and rebut evidence, an impartial decision maker, a record, and written findings adequate to permit judicial review. And I'll talk a little bit more about your role in due process in a minute. But first, we're going to talk very briefly about legislative decisions. They typically, just mostly to provide a contrast, because they involve the adoption of more generally applicable policies. So not to a small group of people, but to a general broad group, and apply to a variety of factual situations. And like I said, broad class of people. Because a legislative decision is the expression of government policy, you're not required to reach a decision. What I was saying earlier, not bound to result in a decision. You may table the issue or decline to review it altogether for legislative decisions. So to contrast that with the land use application, for example, which is approve and deny. So the reason this is important is because for quasi judicial decisions, you have to consider ex parte bias and conflicts of interest. So that's why you should be thinking of those for the quasi judicial decisions. For legislative decisions, you have to consider only conflicts of interest. So you don't have to consider ex parte or bias for those. And the reason for that is that they implicate due process. Yes.
Can you give us an example of a time when we might face a quasi judicial?
A land use application is the exact,
Wouldn't that go to planning commission?
but then it comes to you.
Oh, final, okay, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow the process.
No,
That makes
totally.
sense.
Okay. So an ex parte contact is loosely defined as any communication or information about the matter before you that is obtained from any source outside the hearing. And it's commonly understood as a conversation with, for example, the applicant. A meeting, an email, text, a phone call with an interested party that is outside the hearing process. But if you look at the loose definition above, it is much broader than that and includes any evidence relating to a pending application that is relied on by a hearing body member in making a final decision if that evidence is not disclosed. So it means that ex parte contact can include a newspaper article you read about the development, for example, or a blog post or a report you heard on the radio. All of those are ex parte contacts. But the good news is that they don't render a decision unlawful as long as there is full disclosure. And there are two components of full disclosure. You must place the substance of the ex parte contact on the record, and you must publicly announce it as well. And by placing it on the record, that means the written record of the quasi judicial decision, and then also announcing it verbally. Disclosure must occur at the earliest possible time in the decision-making process, and the reason for the disclosure requirement is to allow the public an opportunity to rebut the substance of the ex parte content. Communications with staff are not considered ex parte contacts. However, staff can't serve as a conduit for obtaining information outside of the public process unless it is disclosed. Okay, the other issue you have to consider for quasi judicial decisions is bias. Biased decision makers substantially impairs a party's ability to receive a full and fair hearing. Bias can be in favor of or against the party or the application, and generalized expressions of opinion are not bias. Now, I wanna tell you what actual bias, the definition of actual bias. It means prejudice or prejudgment of the parties or the case to such a degree that the decision maker is incapable of being persuaded by the facts to vote another way. It's pretty extreme. It can include personal bias, personal prejudice, or an interest in the outcome. And I want to note that when you're acting as a quasi judicial decision maker, you're not expected to be free of opinions or even bias. Likely you were selected or elected here because you have opinions about issues in the community, right? You generally favor or oppose certain issues. But you are expected to set your bias aside when deciding individual applications so that you can engage in the necessary fact finding and attempt to interpret and apply the law to the facts as you find them, despite those feelings that you have. So actual bias is a very high bar that you can't even see the facts to vote another way, basically. Okay, now we're gonna talk about conflicts of interest, which you should be considering in all the decisions, legislative as well. An actual conflict of interest is defined, the ethics laws are at ORS 244, as any decision or act by a public official that would result in a quote private pecuniary benefit or detriment, and pecuniary means financial. So an actual conflict is a decision or act that would result in a private financial benefit or detriment. And it extends not just to the financial gain or loss of you as the public official, but also to any of your relatives or any business with which you are associated. And we're going to talk about what those mean next. The law defines what a relative is, and it includes the spouse, parent, step-parent, child, sibling, step-sibling, son-in-law, and daughter-in-law of a public official. It also includes the public official's spouses, parent, step-parent, child, sibling, son-in-law, and daughter-in-law. It includes any individual that the public official has a legal obligation to support, and any individual to whom or from whom the official provides or receives benefits from employment. So if someone's like on your insurance, then they qualify as a relative, regardless of your actual relation to them. Businesses with which a public official is associated. So for private businesses, it's if you are a director, officer, owner, employee, or agent of the business, or if you own or have owned more than $1,000 worth of stock, equity interest, stock options, or debt interest in the preceding calendar year. For a publicly held corporation, you're associated with the business if you are an officer or director of a publicly traded company, or if you own or have owned more than $100,000 worth of stock in the preceding calendar year. And you're also associated with a business as a public official if you're required. Well, you are required to file a statement of economic interest, but if that business is a source of income on your SEI, which we'll talk about later, that produces 10% or more of your total annual household income. So if the other two aren't captured, then if it's 10% or more of your annual household income on your SEI, then you're also associated with that business. Now, a common question that we get is you sit on the board of a 501c nonprofit organization, which is up, for example, for a grant before the council. The 501c nonprofits are explicitly exempt from conflict of interest laws, so you can vote on that grant, for example, if you're on the board of the nonprofit. Okay, but what if you do have an actual conflict of interest? What do? You must both announce the actual conflict of interest in the meeting and then refrain from taking official action or even participating in any discussion or deliberation on the topic. And my advice, if you have an actual conflict of interest, is to step down from the dais, potentially even leave the room. The Ethics Commission has found that nodding or even other gestures, which it's hard to keep yourself from doing, right? Those count as participating in a discussion. So, like I said, my advice, if you have an actual conflict, is to step down from the dais or leave the room while the discussion is happening. So by contrast, a potential conflict of interest is a decision or act by a public official that could result in a private financial benefit or detriment to you, your relative, or a business with which you're associated. So the difference is potential is could, while actual is would. So in the case, and I'll give you some examples in a minute, but in the case of a potential conflict, you must announce the conflict, but then you can participate in the discussion and even the vote on an issue. So I have some hypotheticals. I'm starting to lose my voice, but I think I'll go through them anyway, because I think they're really illustrative. So the first hypo is a school district has decided to construct a new elementary school, and the school board is at the stage of developing criteria for the construction bid process. A recently elected school board member's son owns a construction company in town. Would the school board be met with a conflict of interest if they participated in official actions to develop the bid criteria? And is it actual or potential? Talk about it, or you just think the end?
I mean, it seems like it would be potential until the child or until their child.
I agree. It's a potential conflict because the official actions she takes could financially impact her son's construction company, a business with which her relative is associated. And the reason I like this example is because it shows that it's more than just voting, right? A lot of people think, obviously, yes, no, vote, that is something where you have to consider it. But even developing bid criteria, you have to still be thinking of conflict of interest issues. So then in that case, the school board member should publicly announce the conflict every time the issue arises, but may participate in the discussion and the vote on the bid criteria once it's publicly announced. Okay, so I'm tweaking the facts a little. A school district is soliciting bids for the construction of the new elementary school. The bid deadline was last week, and the district superintendent has notified the school board that there are 4 qualified bids, and the school board will be awarding the contract to one of the 4 bidders at their upcoming meeting. One of the qualified bids was submitted by the construction company owned by the school board member's son. Will the school board member be met with a conflict of interest when awarding this bid? And if so, is it actual or potential?
Yes.
Yes, this is an actual conflict. Because the effect of her decision would have a financial impact, positive or negative, on her son's construction company, a business with which her relative is associated. And I say positive or negative because a conflict of interest is a decision that would result in a private financial benefit or detriment. So if she votes no, that doesn't resolve the conflict because that's a detriment to her son's business, right? So then what should she do? She should announce, she should announce the conflict and refrain from participating in any official action on the issue and refrain from participating even in the discussion. And like I said, my advice would be to step down from the dais for that conversation. So I have a last hypothetical, which is a school district is soliciting bids for the construction of the new elementary school. One of the qualified bids was submitted by a construction company owned by a board member's best friend. But neither the board member nor any of the board member's relatives are associated with the construction company. So would the school board member be met with a conflict of interest when awarding this bid? And if so, is it actual or potential?
Yes.
Oh, this one's tricky. There is not a legal conflict of interest because the effect of her official decision would not and could not have a financial impact on herself, on a relative, or on a business with which she or her relative is associated. So what should the school board member do in this situation?
I'll declare.
So nothing is legally required, but she could announce the appearance of a conflict, say it's not a legal conflict, and then because it's not a legal conflict, she will participate in it. Okay. There is an exception to the conflict of interest laws where a public official is part of a class that consists of a larger group of people affected by a decision. And in that case, no conflict exists. So a good example of this is like a decision to pave an unimproved street in your neighborhood. Right? That may affect your value of your home. But because it's you're part of a class that consists of a larger group, that neighborhood, it's not a conflict. Now, this one's tricky. There's no hard and fast rule on the size or type of class to which the conflict exemption applies. So, and it's very fact dependent. So my advice is to seek legal advice before relying on it. If you're, you believe that you're part of a class.
And just to clarify, I mean, aside from just calling you, they, I believe we can also call CIS and, OAGC if we have questions, correct?
Correct, I'm gonna address that
sorry.
a little later, it's okay. So this is a weird one. The ethics laws are personal to the public official. So they're personal to you, which I represent the city. So you don't call me if you have an ethics question. I can answer general questions like the 501c3 question, but otherwise, OGEC is a good resource or a personal attorney. Okay, I'm really close to done. So there's a gift law, which prohibits public officials, relatives of public officials, and here's a new one, members of the public official's household from soliciting or receiving any gifts over $50 in a calendar year from any source that has or could reasonably be expected to have a legislative or administrative interest in the public official's decisions or votes. That's kind of a hard one to wrap your brain around, but my advice is to look to the source of the gift, and that's for both whether it is whether the person has a legislative or administrative interest and also the amount. A gift is anything of economic value, but I think the last time I counted, there were 19 exceptions to the gift law. It's like longer than the gift law itself. So if you believe you are faced with a gift decision, I encourage you to look at the exceptions. Conference meals are included in the exceptions. Gifts from relatives or members of a household. Tokens, plaques, trophies, or mementos that are valued at less than $25. There's a lot of exceptions. Okay. Abuse, there's also prohibited use of office or abuse of office, which is in ORS 244 as well. So public officials may not use or attempt to use their position to obtain financial gain or avoid financial detriment that would not otherwise be available but for the holding of the official position. And I have a really good example for this one. So there was this is a real true thing that happened. So a fleet employee was buying a bunch of new cars for their city. And they were getting a really good deal because they were buying essentially in bulk. And so they decided to use their own money to buy themselves a car, like add one extra car. Didn't use city funds for that extra car. Nevertheless, it was a prohibited use of office because they used their position at the fleet to obtain a financial gain. The discount was a financial gain that would not otherwise have been available but for their holding of that position. And that was decided to be a prohibited use of office. confidential information. Public officials may not further or attempt to further personal gain through the use of confidential information that is gained in the course of or by reason of their official position or activities in any way. And my example here is if you find out confidentially that like a landfill is moving in next to your house, right? Your property value is gonna tank, you can't do anything about that. You cannot use that information to further or attempt to further your personal gain. You can't sell your house if the landfill's moving in. If you find out confidentially that the landfill's moving in next door. Nepotism, this is pretty straightforward. You can participate in the appointment, employment, promotion, discharge, firing, or demotion of a relative or member of your household and cannot directly supervise a relative or member of your household. I mentioned the SEI filings a little bit before. It's a statement of economic interest that must be filed by April 15th of each year. It covers assets from the previous calendar year, just like your taxes. It's basically a declaration of income holdings and business associations, and OGEC provides a form that you have to use for that. So lastly, as I mentioned earlier, ethics laws are personal to the public official. They are enforced by OGEC. OGEC does provide a lot of really excellent resources, including the guide for public officials and also opinions. And I want to note for opinions, if you get an OGEC commission decision, commission opinion based on something, then it's a safe harbor. You cannot be then found to have violated the ethics laws if you follow the advice in that commission opinion. Staff opinions don't count, but commission opinions provide that safe harbor. And they also have good trainings and their staff is really helpful. And my advice here is to only use OGEC if you are faced with a prospective ethics conundrum. If you worry that you've already done something, my advice is to go to a personal attorney because obviously the ethics laws are enforced by OGEC as well. So if you go to OGEC for something you already did, then you're essentially confessing. So, but otherwise, I really do, they have really helpful staff and resources, so go to them, use it. And that's all. Do you have any questions? Thank you. If you think of something, feel free to email me. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Always good refresher.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you. Avoid
Okay.
conundrum.
Avoid conundrums, I agree. Okay, with that, before we move on to unfinished business, let's take a quick 5-minute recess and then we'll be back. And we are back. Session. Okay, so next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have the either UGB PAC meeting update and council representation update, Councilor DeForge.
No updates for me.
No updates from Councilor DeForge. Does anybody have any questions for Councilor DeForge on his no updates? Just want to give everybody a chance.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate the succinctness. All right, audit update, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing really, no major update from audit process. Marina and us and if that's proper grammar and UVF, Quad Valley Financial Auditors have just been working on back and forth. Asking for information and getting things sent to them or elaborating on different things. So that's been going on for a couple weeks, fairly standard procedure. The big thing I wanted to report was that I'm working with Marina to make a presentation at your next meeting on the 18th and just kind of walk through, questions and answers and kind of walk through, their process. And kind of what they do for the city, and how that is part, what they're producing, the financial statements ultimately are what ultimately get audited. And so what the process is like from the city's side of things. And then, just very pointedly, by Monday the 16th, we should be able to, come to you with some clarifications about the presentation that you heard on the 2nd. At the last meeting, the 17th of February. Thank you, Lori. The presentation that was given to you all we were expecting to have the CPA in charge of our audit present, and instead it was Savannah Halter, who kind of manages the information flow between the auditor, the audit team, and the city and Marina. And she kind of went into some details that were more speculation than actual findings yet, or actual conclusions of anything, because we're so early in the process. So on the one hand, she mentioned final financials were delivered, 2 weeks prior. But at the same time, she was answering questions along the lines of, there are this many findings or this many deficiencies. And that's contradictory. And until you go through the full process and the CPA in charge kind of reviews and wraps up and finishes it, it's early and speculative to say actually what's going to ultimately be in the audit report that you get from, and then you get a presentation from UVF about. So we're going to work with UVF, Marina is, and we as well, to kind of clarify where some water was muddy. And we'll be back and talk about all that on the 16th, Monday the 16th. So that's the big update for you. It's just, you'll get to meet Matt Apkin, and he'll kind of walk through some things for you there on that side. And Matt, I think I communicated it, but Matt's a CPA, public CPA. He's been a finance director for other cities, larger cities in North Plains, so he's seen his fair share of weird stuff. And also, Marina used to be municipal auditors, and he was a lead part of that team. So he's come at it from the audit side as well as being at the public agency side of things. So he'll be ready to answer questions for you too. So that's the big audit update, I would say, right now. So stand for any questions on that if you have them.
Questions? Councilor
Weber, on the Marina issue, we had said, I think their contract ran out. So is that something that's gonna also come back to us at some point? New contract for Marina?
Yes, that's great question, Councilor Weber. That is part of what we'll discuss is we need to, the contract we had with them that expired was a little more narrow than we kind of really need now, given that we, we're not able to really get any applications for the finance manager position that had met the basic requirements. So they've taken on some of those functions, but we need to kind of formalize fully what that is in a contract. So that'll be discussed too.
The contract will come to us at the next meeting?
Yeah, it will definitely, a contract with them will definitely exceed the $50,000. So it will absolutely come back to you all when we have a contract.
So that's coming at the next meeting?
No, he'll be here to discuss the scope of that. And then we'll have to go through a process to contract on that. And then we'll bring that back to you at a later time.
Any other questions? Councilor Payton, we just don't want to leave you out, I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. Good questions, and thank you both for the reports. And looking forward to hearing from Sean. Next is new business, if we have them. So we're going to go right back to Bill for city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a ton to update on that wasn't kind of already in the packet or Friday vibes. So what I'll just kind of stick to is my normal ask of you all, and that is that we're planning out work sessions and a lot of topics. So I just kind of wanted to go over where we were and then moving forward. So March 16th, I still have down the boards and commissions subcommittee to give an update to council about where they are and talk about all that. April 6th, I continue to have URA grant program ideas. the EDC at their last meeting heard Rowan go over research that's been done and then kind of some recommended new directions for URA grant programs that extend or get out of just doing assistance for restaurants that might want to open up in town. So that would be April 6th. April 20th, we didn't have anything really formalized and down yet. And so what we were proposing to you all is between updating the URA strategic plan and all of that. And then just some questions that have come up about future improvements on Commercial Street and a particular use that is having issues with some of that. What I wanted to propose is on the 20th, we kind of do a work session about the North Plains Downtown Improvement Plan and talk about adopted plans for right-of-way improvements. And then kind of different identified projects that when the URA plan gets updated, you kind of have plug and play projects from the downtown plan, but we go over all that in a work session.
So, thoughts? What?
That's good.
I got it. So now, yes, good, okay, so let's make that happen, and I'm assuming that's Rowan. You and Rowan?
Well, and Dustin as well.
Oh, and Dustin,
So,
right.
yeah, it'll be a team effort. There's a few different angles on that one, from property redevelopment, concepts to street furniture to a lot of public right of way stuff. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot.
Jokes to be made about street furniture, but go on.
So what's the topic of that again? You're saying it's what?
The downtown improvement plan, we could just be kind of digging into that, as a, to kind of better help tee up kind of URA planning, updating, better tee that up for you.
Did you say that's on 4/20?
April 20th, yeah. Second meeting of April, yes.
Counselor Weber, my only question would be it would be helpful to have a URA expert to kind of give us more feedback on what we could and couldn't do. Cause sometimes that's a complicated issue.
Yeah, good question. So, when the URA meeting starts and we talk about the strategic plan, prioritizing new projects is part of that scope of work. And so the intent of the downtown plan work session is just to kind of get you all familiar with the full menu of projects that adopted plan has, so that you kind of have a menu to choose from as you prioritize with the URA consultant.
Okay. Perfect. Then what about, you want to get into May or do you want to wait and do that later?
Say that again.
Did you want to get into the May work sessions?
Well, I want to put it out there for you all. If you wanted to have anything for May 4th or May 18th yet on paper, the only asterisk to all of that is that in late April or early May, we do need to reconvene the budget committee for mid-biennium. It's one meeting and it can be an hour or an hour and a half if folks want to really talk. But that would be just an additional meeting to think about if your schedule gets busy that time of year.
Do we have final dates for, Counselor Hagedorn here? Do we have final dates or have we zeroed in on a date for our, strategic meeting session on a weekend? That I think is slipping into potentially April now.
Well, Councilor Hagedorn, correct. It's going to have to be April, and I have a couple of facilitators that I just haven't. That's the weekend. So, but I would say that it's going to fall somewhere in that time frame too. So, I think my intent, if you all are okay with it, is one of the April weekends gets nailed down as the strategic planning, strategic goals, strategic planning exercise. And then I think probably early May could easily be the budget, or even mid-May. I mean, there are no decisions being made by the budget committee. It's just, it's traditional to meet, report on where we are compared to budget, and then just kind of update on the different efforts that were authorized in the budget and all that stuff. So that can be May easily.
That sounds good to me. Okay. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so let's move on to council reports. So Councilor Papen.
Good evening. My ex officio duties are coming up. I will share, I attended a partial WACA budget committee meeting on behalf of Councilor Hagedorn a couple weeks ago. Had a great interaction meeting the executive director, Mark, there. At that meeting, they approved the budget committee meeting minutes from February 2025. This was my first time attending, but some of the notes I had captured was just really the investment in $1 million into their CAD system. Their budget is built on roughly 106 employees, and right now they currently have 91, and they are really feeling a constraint with staffing, particularly. Some of the feedback from other neighboring cities that they are seeing a little bit of a frustration with continuing rising costs. Again, I think that's kind of the sentiment of a lot of local jurisdictions. And then at the end, I was able to get a quick tour of the center and just learned about some of the redundancies they have in place to make sure that they're remaining operational in the event of any kind of catastrophic earthquake or anything along those lines. And I really encourage you, if you have any questions, to reach out, but I learned a ton at that session. With that, I will pass it back over.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Warrington.
I have nothing to report.
I know,
Next
but
time.
I didn't want to leave you out.
Thank you.
But if this is a time if there's anything you want to add to the agenda, to a future agenda, this is the time to bring it up. So just so you're aware.
All
I
right,
try to remind everybody so that we don't miss it.
thank you.
Yes, Councilor Forge.
And Mayor, start off with, I understood that we had an action item last council meeting to discuss monthly accounting reports. And so I think the feedback is that we should have that as an agenda item. Let me future meeting.
What? I'm sorry, accounting reports, as in what you want to see from city manager or from the
Yeah,
city finance.
the 30-second recap is, Bill brought up last session that he was willing to consider new ideas on the monthly financials that are produced. And so I just wanted to, I took that up, and I think the direction is that we add it to an agenda item, future meeting. And is everyone okay with?
Yes. Handshakes.
Okay, so let's add it.
And so just to be clear, we're gonna work independently and then discuss it as opposed to a subcommittee type preparation.
I think, to paraphrase, please do your homework and come back with your suggestions. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
I like
Yes.
that idea.
Okay. Sounds good. Next is I attended library board meeting and, was actually really impressed by the team there. Staff member Emily and voluntary Lane, part of a early literacy support program. So it really goes beyond, just talking about books. They're really supporting our kids. I appreciate that. I got inspired, so I made a donation to the Friends of North Plains Library.
Was that Mr. Hatcher's doing? Cause he gave me the talk and convinced me.
I'll give credit to Emily and Elaine, but I wasn't the day. It was a nice,
It's a good sales job.
yeah, good thing to support.
It is.
I also attended, Metropolitan Advisory Board. This agenda was focused on transportation and industrial land use, so which I thought was kind of interesting, the overlap. Of course, we're not in Metro, but it was interesting to see how they're considering how population growth, housing needs, and how it's overlapping with what we're doing on TGM. There was some back and forth about support for the Washington County and a little bit of division, but it appears that there are some pretty determined supporters there. And let's see here, I think that's going to conclude my council report.
Okay, Councilor Reddy.
I don't have any, council writing here. I don't have any ex officio duties that I attended. And I sadly actually need to, ask if anyone is available to cover my Parks and Rec ex officio duties on Monday, the 9th. As well as April 1st. Some things came up for my children. So I apologize for
Wait,
taking.
what was the dates again? Sorry.
Monday, the 9th,
March?
yes, next Monday.
Okay.
And then April 1st. It's a Wednesday for EDC.
I'm out.
EDC is the April first one.
Yes, Parks and Rec.
I can
Monday.
attend the E EDC.
Can anybody cover for Monday the 9th for parks? I will be on airplane.
I'll be in Vancouver, can it be by phone?
Lori,
It's probably best.
Zoom?
I think.
Is it okay?
Zoom has a phone number.
Okay.
You can-
Oh, yeah. I just wasn't sure if we were, if that was allowed. I was verifying, okay. I should always want to check. Okay, so you got that?
Coming in.
Excellent. Thank you.
And if there's anything you guys would like to swap with me, please.
You have taken on a lot. So.
Yeah,
I appreciate
I'm
that.
gonna fried myself a little bit. So thank you both, Councilor Weber, Councilor Hagedorn. And then I'm gonna bug Bill about the Jesse Mays audiovisual update.
Yeah, I'm actually scheduling a meeting with MAC about that, the agency themselves, not the vendor. So we have an existing grant we're doing some accounting on, and it may work its way into something better than grants we've been getting on money besides what we're spending of our own, so that's coming.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And last time, I just want to confirm, you said you thought it would be over the 60,000 that we had, which is blowing my mind.
Well, correct, so $60,000 won't buy a lot these days, I'm afraid to say. I mean, we have projector issues, we have camera issues, we have microphone and audio. I mean, it's kind of an overhaul. And the last quotes we got on kind of a substantial overhaul were in the 100 to 120,000 range. So the $60,000 that you all, when you adopted the budget, parked that money in the Jesse Mays Fund. That's being clear for us to spend on whatever we can get for $60,000. They didn't get the additional amount, MAC didn't into their budget. I don't have a great story for why that is. But that'll be part of the conversation with them, is kind of get money back in spending on the project, so.
All right, thank you. And then, this is kind of to Bill and Mayor. The water bill QR or resident survey, I had kind of brought up and was ready to present on, and you guys are like, hold on, we got an idea. I'm just kind of wondering, is there some movement there, or could I get a?
Thought? Oh, good, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So, we are, it kind of got delayed because of people being gone, but we're gonna move to, we're looking at and likely gonna be mailing out in a slightly nicer print version, the newsletter, separate from water bills. And so we'll have kind of dedicated space for people to kind of get used to QR code polls, getting their opinion sort of thing. So we're gonna move it, but that's where we would be putting it, is in kind of in the newsletter in a glossier version. But that's where we're moving forward with that idea. It's just not, we're gonna more printly cheap water bills by themselves. And then do a slightly nicer version of the newsletter separate from it. With things like polls by QR code, because we have a ton of people who auto pay and just toss the newsletter. And so we think this will be better at getting their attention and get their participation.
My only concern is if we tie it to the water bill, for if we decide to do the lottery, people won't necessarily know their number if it's separate. So that's just something to think about.
Excellent point. So we'll have to figure out how to link it. But yes, it's a very good point. But just know that the effort here is to try to get more people to see and interact with the newsletter. And I think that'll help, yes.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear some progress on it.
You don't probably skip over me.
No, Council President. move next.
Okay, thank you. So first and foremost, the week before last, I want to acknowledge Councilor Paven for kindly and very last minute stepping in to attend the WACA budget session. It was very unexpected and I really appreciate her just, she was there in minutes and it was really amazing. It's just a great example of partnership and the kind of team spirit I think we value. So thank you, Councilor Paven. I did on the 27th have a one-on-one with the director, Mark Buckles. I don't think I pronounced his last name correctly. Buckles. He usually has one-on-ones with all of his board members. We spent a lot of time talking about AI. He's really excited about this. He's inserting 3 modules into kind of his call center standard work. So the last time I reported that they're doing skill like training and skill development for people in the call centers. And then they recently rolled out a module for non-emergent call handling. And then in about 5 weeks, they're going to be rolling out a module on policy and procedure application and consistency, which I thought was kind of neat, because right now they only sample like 1 to 2% of all their calls. And so this would enable them to broaden that and deliver consistent kind of service and whatnot and training and kind of a QA, really, if you think about it. So I asked him if he had any messages to add on here, and he wanted me to emphasize that they're doing a lot of training or hiring. They need people in their call centers, and it's really hard for them to get people. So in a funnel of like 80 applicants, there's just kind of that natural attrition, and he maybe hires and keeps like 3 people. So he needs to hire people. And so I thought I'd spread the word, and a really great benefit of working there is you can take your dog with you. So I wanted to mention that it's a really great career, maybe retirees fresh out of college. So please think about that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good job, right, doing my dog work.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I have one, so we're at home.
Dawn.
Go. See, yeah. Councilor Weber.
is good.
Good, all right, sorry, I see. It's going in order. You threw me off. All right. Let's see, so the remote handwriting. Question for Bill on, did we book State of the City for the whatever day was it? Somebody did earlier.
We should sit down and talk about that. I mean, yeah, I have the date. It's just kind of what you
Okay,
needs to be planned.
yeah, I'll spend some scheduled time with you. It was whatever date I sent you, and I can't remember. It's probably the wrong one too.
I thought it was early the week after next was kind of the
17th would be St. Patrick's Day,
It's the 19th.
the Thursday, the 19th.
No, we
I was
might
like,
want to do it for St. Patrick's Day. Might be a better reception.
Could be very reception.
All right, so yeah, I'll schedule some time, so with that. I started writing the outline, so I have most of my notes. I was gonna bring it in and probably subject you and Lori to making sure I don't say anything dumb. Good luck with that. Okay, so let's see, I'm scheduled for TDFNR Academy, so I can finally be cool like Councilor Papen. And that will be, I didn't realize, it'll be the Friday and Saturday before Easter, so if you get a chance, I strongly suggest doing it. I've never actually gotten to do it, but we used to make fun of the firemen when I was a cop, so it'll be a lot of fun. I'll probably get beat up or something, or sewed into my sleeping bag. It was brought to my attention, and this is my fault for not realizing this, we don't have a backup for WCCC, or at least not officially, so it's usually the council president, but I'll leave it up to council. I told them I would give it to you guys and you can figure out, but it meets monthly, I want to say, if I
The
remember.
second Monday of each month would be routine. And I have no backup duty, so I'm happy to
Okay. that's
step
fine.
in there as backup.
It's mostly just listening to everybody complain about transportation problems, so.
Perfect.
Usually there's arguing over who gets what money. Sterling, okay, so council writing, so I will,
Is that in person or am I?
it's on. You can be, I don't know, I'm always on Zoom, so.
Perfect, thank you.
And it's actually a good one. There's a lot of argument. Today in the mayor and chair meeting, chair of the Buckingham County Commissioners, Chair Harrington brought up, there's a first responder drone program that was funded through a grant. So if you see a drone coming at you that says sheriff's on the side, it's probably not going to attack you. That's a first responder program. Very exciting to see how this goes. And if you have questions, I'm sure the chief would love to talk about this. I think it's cool. But she just want to let us all know that, hey, this is coming. We don't know how wide it's going to go yet, but they're just kind of trying to figure this out to get better, faster, better first response. And it's not designed to be the first responder. It's supposed to be one of the first responders, but as she pointed out, it may get there before the car. So just be aware of that in case somebody starts freaking out. Please don't shoot at them. The other thing is, I don't know exactly how widely the flock cameras are used, but there was a lot of questions about that, concerns with immigration things. Sheriff Massey spoke with Chair and let her know that they're retaining, I think it was license plates or something like that. That's all they're retaining. It's a very small amount of data. If you have questions, please just reach out to Bill or Chief and they can direct your questions to the sheriff. But let's not panic about things. I mean, if you have questions, just ask Bill or the chief, they can figure it out for you. It's pretty limited data. I know a lot of people flock because my day job, and it's pretty limited what they have access to. And I had a meeting with County Commissioner Treese on the proposal to raise taxes, another tax and more the registration fees in the county. I'm supposed to, that probably went about as you would expect. She's asked to come to speak to council, so I direct her to Lori, which is the appropriate process. And Lori will figure out when that will be.
It's already.
Oh, Lori's already taken care of it. Sorry. I should know this.
There are a lot of presentations.
I know this.
I've kind of had to,
Yikes.
yeah.
Well, if that one doesn't, I'm just kidding. Jeez.
Because TVFNR has one coming up and. Let's see.
Oh, nice. Later, you didn't ask questions. So I'll just say, I did inform her that she's not gonna get a warm reception in North Plains, but that we will be respectful and polite and courteous. But please bring your questions and your constituents' concerns. I gave her some of what I thought was gonna be concerns with doubling the vehicle registration fees in the county. So, but please remember to be respectful. This is an elected official at the county level. It's treasurer. We're all trying to do the right thing, and she's trying to solve one problem and just give us another problem. So, let's see. I think that was all of them. I'll work with Bill on state of the city. I think we're mostly there. If you can make it Thursday, I think at noon or 2 o'clock or something is Banks. Can't remember what time it is.
I can tell you.
It's in my calendar. I know that because I've gotten so many reminders. One, thank you. So you can come out and support Banks. That'd be great. I have not made it to any of the others, unfortunately, because of work travel, but that one I think I'm going to be at. And finally, election season is coming up for some of you, or some of your seats at least. So just be aware of that. And just in general to the public, if you're interested in running, always reach out to one of us, and I'm sure that we're all happy to help. Explain, not campaign for you, sorry. Explain to you what the process is, as best we can.
Yeah, I'll be putting it on,
Oh, perfect.
not real soon, because
It's still a little ways.
it's dates backwards from this date and dates
Yes.
backwards from this date,
It's very
so
confusing,
it,
intentionally.
yeah, especially when you only do it every 2 years, but it will be
Yes.
online,
Yeah.
probably, the first part of May.
Okay, perfect.
I'm estimating, because you can't,
Can't
apply to run until after July.
July.
Somewhere, yeah.
It's like July or
Yeah,
August.
it was weird.
The final deadline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's,
So, but just be aware that that's coming up. So there'll be a lot of yard signs, and make sure you follow the rules on yard signs, please. Because we don't want to have somebody driving around putting in yard signs. And with that, we move on to council calendar. I think we're good. Does anybody have any questions or need to switch anything else on council calendar and ex officio meetings? We're usually pretty good on this. Council Warrington, we will get you plugged in.
I have her plugged in on,
Steve, way ahead of you.
Already have homework.
yeah, she has it in her packet. And
Exciting.
she doesn't start her first ex officio duties until June.
Well, that's
Usually like to give them a couple of months to get a feel for.
Thank you.
Hey, these are fun. All right, so it looks like I have planning commission on Wednesday. No, that's week Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
The only thing we have is Council Pavement Economic Development. What?
Katie's Parks and Rec is on the 11th or the 9th. Okay. And that's 6, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's just a typo.
Okay.
It's the calendars are so exact for.
Got
I got
it,
it.
thank you.
Okay, so yes, and then I will have planning commission on the 11th, and then Council Reagan on March.
And just so you know, for upcoming
Oh.
presentations, April 6th is Clean Water Services. April 20th is, Commissioner Treese. And then I think the first one in May is TV. So. Tis the season for these institutions.
Yes, remember to have them play, but also bring your light foods. And with that, I believe that we are adjourned at 8:15.